All right, everyone, welcome back into another NBA props video. We got a one-game slate here where we're going to be breaking down the top prop bets for the Toronto Raptors versus the New York Knicks game. We got one player that's currently questionable that I expect to sit that should gain us some good value on the slate if that does end up happening. Let's go ahead and get into it. Now, guys, real quickly, I do want to start off with a recap from yesterday because another good night in the NBA. And as you guys know, I typically don't like to bring up like the green screens and whatnot or just the results too much, especially after a good day or a bad day, really, because I feel like that really creates the wrong bias for people, really. Like after a bad day, people might be like, oh, this guy doesn't know anything. Or after a good day, people might overvalue my advice. My goal is to give you guys good bets that in the long term are going to be profitable. Day to day, like, sure, we're going to have bad days, we're going to have good days. The reason why I'm calling this out is because we've been too hot. We've been too hot lately, hitting 70% of our bets in the NBA over the past 3 days, 17 for 24. Okay, so this is a one-game slate. We are going to make some bets today based off of one potential edge. It's a one-game slate. We're trying to kind of get lucky with that. Okay, and so because we've been on a hot tear doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to have a good day today. Most of the time, it means the opposite. I mentioned this a bunch. Kind of think of it like stocks, if you will. Like, you don't want to buy a stock when it's like as high as it's ever been. You know, it's kind of like, oh, you want to invest maybe when it's a little bit lower compared to the norm. But looking at the board today, I think that makes sense, right? But looking at the board that we have today, guys, again, a very limited board. We have one good bet on the board, and that's going to be Andre Yoshivas to get under his fantasy score. And we know he is someone that is a little bit touchdown dependent. Like, he could easily score a touchdown. So not a good board today on Monday. Hopefully we'll have a better board tomorrow. But let's go ahead and jump on into this one-game slate here in the NBA. And so what I find fascinating is that all the bets are actually favored for the under today, basically. All the top prop bets on the PrizePicks board are all favored for the under today, which is something, again, I don't necessarily like. That kind of sucks. But the player that I mentioned that could potentially sit is going to be Karl-Anthony Towns. If you look at the game spread of this game, it's only a 6-point spread in favor of the New York Knicks winning. To me, that points to the fact that Cat could end up sitting in this game. Now, it's a decently high-scoring game, and so naturally, I want to be favoring a lot of the overs, and especially if he does end up sitting, I think that could be huge for us. And if we look at it, Cat did end up sitting in their last game, and so with that, I kind of expect him to sit tonight, especially because they have the NBA Cup on Wednesday. Now, does the NBA Cup really matter in the grand scheme of things? No. Like if a player's healthy enough to play, they're not going to sit out a game because of the NBA Cup. But at the same time, maybe they will. I don't know. It seems like players buy into the NBA Cup, and maybe he does end up sitting to make sure that he's fully healthy to go for that game, even though they're both regular season games, and it's just strange. But I'm more leaning towards him sitting tonight. And if he does sit tonight, that does create a bunch of value for us on the slate. So maybe these bets are not necessarily PrizePicks and Underdog bets, but at the same time, if we are right about him sitting, that will create some big edges to the point where we will be gaining an edge on PrizePicks or Underdog. And so, guys, I want to bring up the production for Jalen Brunson with Karl-Anthony Towns off the court. So Jalen Brunson, we're going to see that his points is set at 25.5 right now. And through and through, we look at all the data points that are coming in on him. I think he'll be able to get the over. You look at the DVP projection, which is taking his average minutes played, his average points scored, divided by his average minutes, and then times that by his projected minutes for that game. Expect to get the over, and that's based off of the matchup. Vegas minutes is based off the Vegas line. Average minutes times projected minutes. Average projected. It all tells us that it'll be close, but he should be able to get the over. Now, if Karl-Anthony Towns ends up sitting, that's pretty huge because then Jalen Brunson, to get over his points, should, I don't want to say a lock, but it should be close to that. Okay, he averages 33.5 points per 36 with Karl-Anthony Towns off the court. He's going against Toronto, who gives up 26.9 points to opposing guards per game, the second most in the NBA. And so if you're telling me that Jalen Brunson's going to, see his production spike if Towns is out, even if he's not out, has a good chance to get this over, given the matchup, I really like this bet. And it's one where it kind of feels like it's too low regardless. And so I'd be fine betting that either way. Now, again, if he sits, this line's going to be bumped up regardless. And then from there, I don't mind the idea of getting to MLB Bridges to get over his points as well. We are already seeing a slight prop line difference between some of the books here, where some are actually giving him 17.25. So, some lines are probably heavily favoring the under of 17.5, and some are probably liking the over somewhat at 16.5. Again, if Towns were to sit, and again, I think the spread tells us that he's probably going to sit, Mikal Bridges averages 18.4 points per 36 with Towns off the court. And again, this is projected to be a high scoring game, so I could see betting is over there. And what we'll notice here is that he has been on a little bit of a hot streak, which if you guys have followed the channel, that always makes me a little bit nervous in NBA. It's like, why are we in this line here then? If he's been on this hot streak, it's probably because Vegas is saying he's going to regress back to his mean more so. But Bridges does get a good matchup, and his mean is 16.5 points. So yeah, if he were to come back down to his mean, that would mean he's scoring like 12 points in this game instead. But he also gets a good matchup here as well. And then we look at OG here as well. OG was a bet in their last game that I thought was not going to cash for us. We had him at over 16.5 points. I had written that off as a bet that had missed. I actually was recording a video, and he was missing out on his points by like 4, I think, with like a minute and a half left. I don't know if he got, I didn't see what happened. He maybe got back in the game. He just magically got us over. I was very happy about that, to the point where our slip ended up going 6 for 7 on the night, which was nice. The point behind that bet, though, was the fact that Jalen Brunson might end up sitting, and Brunson didn't. But also, I'm like, he could probably still get the over against Detroit. So I'm going to be on OG in the same scenario here, but this time it's going to be with Karl-Anthony Towns. And so we look at some of the bets that we are getting for him. I'm kind of okay with actually the over rebounds here. PrizePicks has actually bumped this up to 5. Underdog still has this at 4.5. I like the over of 4.5. Regardless, though, I think we could still bet it at 5. I think this has a good chance to be a push. You look at his per 36 production with Karl-Anthony Towns off the court, he does average 6.1 rebounds, which even if Towns does play, he still averages 5 rebounds per 36. So not terrible, or 5 rebounds in general. And if Towns sits, that per 36 production number, it could actually be higher. Same thing with all these guys. We know that the Knicks tend to play over the projected minutes or the 36 minutes when games are close, when the game is closer than projected. We see OG 39 minutes in that game. So that's pretty solid there as well. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and jump on into Toronto here now. I do think it's worth calling out that Grady Dick is back. Grady Dick, being fully healthy, playing a full allotment of minutes is pretty nice, I would say. If this game is indeed going to be close and this high scoring, I think Grady Dick has a great chance to be able to get his over points where it's currently at. And where it's currently at does feel a little bit too low. So yes, we see his line at 15.5 points just based off of his season average, guys. At 18.4, that seems to be a little bit too low. I know he gets a matchup against New York that is a more difficult matchup, but to me, Vegas says this is high scoring. Vegas says this game has a chance to not be a blowout. And so if that's true, I think that's going to be because Grady Dick is having a good game. And now the over is only a 51% likely to hit, but I still like the fact that the data is liking the over there regardless. So not a terrible bet. Again, we are trying to get some game stacks here on a 1-game slate. From there, let's go ahead and jump on into Agbaji, Kachai. And he is someone that actually gives us some interesting lines because with Grady Dick on the court, he actually sees a slight bump in his rebounds per 36 and his assists per 36, to the point where I don't mind betting on his rebounds and assists. But also with Grady Dick on the court, I do think, as we see, the projection data has him at 24 minutes. That does decrease his likelihood of getting minutes. At the same time, I don't know if that's like concrete or not just yet, because I do want to point out his minutes in the last 2 games with Grady Dick back has been 20 and 22. Now, in the game against Dallas, 3 fouls in that game. Only 20 minutes. That game wasn't a blowout, but then in this game against OKC, that was a blowout. So to me, that's not a big enough sample size for us to definitively say anything. I think we'll be able to determine that based off of this game. And if he's someone that does get closer to his average minutes here, 30 minutes, then I think we'll be looking back in this and saying, man, we should have hammered the over 4.5 rebounds and assists. But that's not something we have to go crazy with as well. And then from there, guys, let's talk about Scotty Barnes and Jakob Poeltl. So again, in this game where it's projected to be a close-ish game, 6 points, I start to worry about a blowout in terms of changing my bets at about, let's say, 7.5 points. It is worth calling out here that Scotty Barnes' fantasy score is off compared to the average sportsbook line. Okay, so probably should be closer to 42.5. Slight edge there, but don't have to go crazy with that. I actually like Scotty Barnes to get over his 7.5 assists. Again, you look at his production with Grady Dick off the court, he actually sees an increase in his assists per 36 to 9.6. And so if we're looking at his line of 7.5 or 8, I actually like the over a decent amount there. I think he has a good chance to get that over. If you're betting on PrizePicks, I think he has a good chance to be a push there as well. And really for Scottie Barnes, there's not exactly a bet that I hate. He has been playing extremely well recently. We see the assists have been awesome lately as well. I'm perfectly happy to get to him for the over in the sense that we are going to stack him up with Poeltl. So to me, there's not really a bad bet for Scottie Barnes. I like the rebounds and assists a little bit more so. Like this isn't even a bad bet. If you combine the two lines that we're getting on PrizePicks, it tells us that it should be at 16 rather than 16.5. But again, not a terrible bet. And then, yes, let's just pull up Poeltl as well. So these two heavily correlate, guys. If one is having a good day, the other's having a good day. And that's literally just based off the game staying close enough for long enough for these two to get their minutes. So as long as the game, again, isn't too much of a blowout and is this high scoring, I do like the over bets for Poeltl. Whether it be over his points, I'm fine with. His PRA does seem to be a little bit too tight for me in the sense that if he's getting his over PRA, he's going to get his over points. And also same thing with his rebounds for the most part. His rebound line is set at 10.5, which is a little high, but I don't hate it, again, if the game is that high scoring. And we look at his fantasy score, that might be a little bit too low. I think I would rather be on his over fantasy score than his over PRA. Those two do heavily correlate there as well. And again, we'll just show you guys the board so that you guys can be aware of kind of what the data is telling us. So the data actually, oops, wrong slide, apologies. So the data actually does like the PRA a little bit better in terms of the average Vegas line. They're giving it about a 51% likelihood, where the points is basically a 50-50 split. Again, that's based off of the game staying close. He is projected to get 32 minutes, which if he's getting his over points, that does decently correlate pretty well with Scottie Barnes getting his over assist as well there. So all in all, actually, we are forcing some bets here on a single game slate, but it's not like too crazy. Like the bets all correlate. We are potentially getting some big edges here. And so I kind of like this day today as well. So with that, guys, let's go ahead and get into the bet of the day. But first, just a reminder of the promo code that's currently going on the website. Use the promo code KEEPCASH and get 20% off your first month of membership at 9to5sports.com. So I do that so you guys can, use it to see if you guys like it. It becomes $8 a month instead of $10 a month for the first month. It's an easy way to try out the best value membership out there that gives you guys the best bets per day so you guys can make educated decisions like you guys saw me making throughout this video. So guys, let's go ahead and get into the bet of the day right now. All right, so getting into the bet of the day, again, going to be using Underdog just as a general kind of view for you guys. This is more if you guys are betting on traditional sports books, but I do think it works well with PrizePicks as well today if you guys choose to do that as well. So we got Jalen Brunson over 25.5 points. I do like that bet. Again, if Towns sits, he averages 33.5 points per 36. Regardless, this line does seem to be a little bit too low. The one that you probably don't have to make, and I'm a little bit worried about, is Agbaji to get over his, I have 11.5 points. You could do points and assists as well. That's just a bet on the minutes being a little bit higher than what he's seen recently. But that being said, if you skip out on this, I do like the Grady Dick bet a little bit more than, like, it should help a little bit. Grady Dick in this matchup, and that's projected to be high scoring, should be able to get the minutes and should be able to get the over. And that's going to, like, these all three correlate pretty well. It's just betting on the game not being a blowout. And then MLB Bridges to get over his points. Again, more hoping that Towns sits, but he has a chance to get the over in this matchup against Toronto. And then OG, I would say if Towns does play, not a bet that I would want to be on. This is purely just trying to get an edge with Towns potentially sitting, but this was able to get us to a 7 slip bet instead of a 6. You don't necessarily have to do that. You can make it a 6 slip bet if you guys want, or a 5 slip bet as well. Like, whatever. You guys can choose whichever bets that you want from here because it's not that loaded of a board. Because we have like one good bet on both sites as it sits right now via the board. Like if you want to toss an Andre Yoshivash in here to max slip it to 8, you could do that as well to get under his fantasy score, but I don't necessarily want to do that either. So with that, guys, that's going to do it for today's video. Make sure to give a like and subscribe to the channel. I do appreciate you guys being here. Comment your guys' favorite prop bet. That does help out the channel a bunch. Sorry for coming out with this video a little bit later. Trying to still figure out a good schedule with football, pretty much, with the Monday night prop videos and Sunday night prop videos. Chances are the Monday NBA video will be coming out a little bit later than the night before or early on in the morning of the day of. But that's going to be all for today's video, guys. Thank you guys for being here. Good luck with all your bets. And as always, let's keep cashing.